Welcome. My name is Nathaniel, and this is my confession. People think a man like me cannot be surprised anymore. When you have spent your life surrounded by wealth and precision, every second scheduled, every movement polished, chance feels like fiction. But that morning, Fate walked into a coffee shop wearing a wrinkled apron and tired eyes. I had stopped by the Lexington brew out of habit more than need. My driver usually handled my caffeine addiction, but the car was stuck in traffic, and I wanted a moment away from boardrooms and screens. The place smelled of roasted beans and city rain, a mix that almost felt human. I was reviewing numbers on my phone when she appeared, slim, focused, moving behind the counter with the rhythm of someone who had learned to survive on routine alone. Her name tag said Hannah. She looked too young to be that tired. When she placed a fresh cup of coffee in front of me, her gaze flicked toward my left hand. For a moment, she froze. Then she said something that made the room still. "My mother used to wear a ring exactly like yours." The words hung there, small but heavy. I looked up, surprised she had spoken to me at all. Waitresses in Lexington Brew rarely did, especially not to comment on the ring that had been in my family for 3 generations. The gold caught the cafe light, the deep green of the emerald pulsing like a heartbeat. "What did you just say?" I asked. She swallowed, obviously regretting her courage. "My mother had a ring that looked just like that one. Same stone. Same design, I think." Something in her tone stopped me from brushing it off. The ring was unique, handcrafted decades ago in a small workshop in Italy. My grandfather had it made for my grandmother. It was supposed to be one of a kind. Yet here was this young woman, standing in front of me with the kind of honesty you cannot fake, telling me her mother had owned its twin. For reasons I still cannot explain, I believed her. She looked nervous, eyes darting toward the door like she wanted to run. The contrast between us must have been absurd, me in a tailored suit, her in a cafe uniform with sleeves rolled to the elbow, her shoes scuffed from the subway. Still, there was a steadiness in her voice that made me pause. "What was your mother's name?" I asked. "Margaret Reed," she said quietly. "She passed away last year." The name meant nothing to me, yet something inside shifted. I should have ended the conversation. I had a meeting to lead, investors waiting, an empire that did not tolerate distractions. But instead, I reached for a business card. "If you have a photograph of that ring," I told her, "I would like to see it." She blinked in disbelief before taking the card with trembling fingers. "All right," she said softly. "I'll try to find one." I left soon after, but her words followed me into the elevator, through the lobby, and into the black car waiting at the curb. For the rest of the day, I caught myself turning the ring around my finger, tracing the faint engraving only family was supposed to know. 2 days passed before my assistant told me Hannah Reed had called. I almost forgot her name until she reminded me of the coffee shop. She sounded uncertain, almost apologetic, but there was determination beneath her nerves. She had found the photograph. When she arrived at Whitmore Tower the next morning, the building swallowed her whole. I watched her from my office window as she crossed the lobby, one small figure among marble, glass, and men in perfect suits. I could tell she felt out of place, but she didn't turn back. That alone earned my respect. My secretary led her in. She stood in front of my desk, clutching a worn envelope. Her voice was steady, but her hand shook as she slid the photo across the glass. "This was taken in 1995, she said. The picture showed a woman, laughing, radiant, standing on the deck of a yacht under a bright sky. On her raised hand gleamed an emerald ring that could have been mine. I stared at it for a long time, unable to breathe. "Your mother was about 22? I asked, staring down at the photograph she had placed before me. Hannah nodded. "Yes. That ring caught my attention because it's almost identical to yours. I leaned forward until the glare from the glass desk faded. The ring on the woman's hand, the woman laughing, sunlight spilling across her face, was no imitation. I knew every curve, every etched line around that emerald. My grandfather had designed it himself decades ago in Venice. One piece only. It was supposed to symbolize the Whitmore legacy, not decorate a stranger's hand. But here she was. Margaret Moore. Young, carefree, wearing something that should have never left my family. "How much do you know about her?" I asked quietly. Hannah's voice softened. "Not much. She worked her whole life in restaurants. She never talked about her past or about my father. It was always just her and me." There was no self-pity in her tone, only the weary honesty of someone who grew up watching her mother fight the world alone. She added, almost as an afterthought, "Her maiden name was Moore. She became Margaret Reed after a short marriage that ended badly." I turned toward the window, the skyline glittering beneath a pale haze. My ring was made for my grandfather and passed to my father, Richard Whitmore. He left it to me 5 years ago after he died. I've never heard of another one being made. When I faced her again, she was watching me like she feared she had intruded on something sacred. "I want to look into this," I said finally. "If you're willing, we'll see where the truth leads." My father kept detailed archives. Maybe something in there will explain how your mother came into possession of this ring, or one like it. Hannah hesitated, then nodded. "All right. I want to know too. But if we find something that could damage her memory, I don't want to be part of a scandal." "I'm not after scandal," I replied. "I just want answers." That was how our uneasy partnership began. A billionaire and a waitress, drawn together by an emerald that had no business existing twice. The next afternoon, we met again, this time at the Whitmore Family Foundation, the old mansion on the Park Avenue district that now served as both museum and archive. The building was a relic of my family's past, the sort of place where silence had weight and time moved slower out of respect. Marble floors reflected chandeliers. Oil portraits of ancestors lined the hall, their painted eyes stern with inherited pride. Hannah followed close behind me, her shoes barely whispering against the stone. I could tell she was overwhelmed. She had probably never stepped inside a house built to impress royalty, and this one had been my childhood playground. Waiting in the entryway was a man in his 60s, slim, impeccably dressed, with silver hair brushed back like polished steel. "Miss Reed," I said, "this is Samuel Turner." He was my father's assistant for more than 30 years. He now manages the archives. Samuel inclined his head politely, but when Hannah's mother's name left my lips, Margaret Moore, I saw the faintest flicker of surprise pass through his expression before he hid it behind professionalism. "I'll do what I can," he said. "Your father kept extensive records, Mr. Whitmore. That period might take a while to locate." We followed him through a narrow corridor lined with portraits. Generations of Whitmores stared down from their frames, and I could almost feel their judgment. Hannah's gaze kept drifting upward, as if the faces themselves might whisper what she was doing there. Samuel unlocked a heavy door at the end of the hall. Inside, the air smelled of leather, old paper, and dust. Shelves of journals and ledgers climbed to the ceiling, lit by amber lamps that made the room feel like a forgotten chapel. Hannah stood beside me as Samuel pulled out a large book marked 1995 in gold lettering. His hands moved with practiced care as he turned the pages. The only sounds were paper rustling and the occasional thoughtful murmur. Interesting." Then his motion stopped. "These are logs from your family's yacht that summer," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Your father hosted business associates and a few staff members for seasonal voyages. He often invited artists, performers, even catering staff. He rotated the book so we could see. Halfway down the neatly written list of names was one that made Hannah step back as if struck. Margaret Moore. Beside it, in parentheses, service staff. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Her mother had worked on my father's yacht. Samuel continued scanning the page, his tone growing careful. There's a note here. Ring misplaced on deck. Search underway. Margaret assisting. It appears an emerald ring was reported missing during that voyage. Your father made the entry himself. The ring was later declared found. Hannah's eyes widened. So, it was his ring? Yes, Samuel said. There was no insurance claim. No formal report. Just that short note. A chill crept through me. If it was returned, why mention her name at all? Did my father think she took it, or did she help him find it? Samuel hesitated. I saw something flicker behind his calm demeanor. Your father was a man of strong emotions, Mr. Whitmore, he said finally. He trusted very few people and shared even less. Whatever happened that summer, he kept it to himself. I closed the ledger slowly. My reflection stared back at me in the polished mahogany table, fractured by the lamplight. The mystery had taken root. That ring in the photograph wasn't a coincidence. It was a thread leading straight into the shadows of my family's past. We left the old study because the room felt too heavy with ghosts. I asked Samuel to keep the ledger safe. Then I led Hannah to one of the newer conference rooms, the kind with glass walls and clean lines that made everything look solvable. It was a lie, but it helped. She sat down slowly, still holding that photograph of her mother on the yacht, smiling with my family's ring on her hand like it belonged there. I took the chair across from her and slipped my own ring off, setting it on the table between us. 2 emeralds, 2 lives, one problem that should not have existed. My father was engaged to my mother in 1995, I said, mostly to hear it out loud. They were married in early 1996. I was born the year after. So why would he be spending that kind of time with a young woman working on the yacht? Hannah had no answer. Her eyes had that faraway look people get when old memories have just been cracked open. She told me quietly that her mother never talked about her past. She worked double shifts. She raised a daughter alone. She did not lean on anyone. Every time Hannah asked about her father, Margaret changed the subject. Now we knew why. Samuel came back carrying a slim folder. I found a few things from that season, he said. He laid it on the table and stepped back. Inside were typed notes, fragments of correspondence, receipts from the French Riviera that summer. One note from August 1995 mentioned Margaret B. on an extended cruise. Underneath, in my father's handwriting, was a short message. Ring found. Must speak to H. Hannah ran her thumb over the ink like she could reach her mother through it. What if my mother and your father knew each other in a personal way? She asked softly. I felt my jaw tighten. If that was true, then my father, Richard Whitmore, carried on some kind of relationship with a young staff member while engaged to my mother, Vivian. I did not like thinking it. I liked even less how possible it was. Samuel tried to give context. Your father enjoyed surrounding himself with people he believed had promise, he said. Artists, musicians, crew, sometimes women who were going through a difficult season. He could be very generous when he wanted to be. Generous. That was one word for it. I looked at Hannah. Your mother was born where? Philadelphia, she said. She left home young. Rough foster situation. By 22, she was working 2, sometimes 3 jobs. Which made it entirely believable that a woman like that could end up working a private yacht for a few weeks in the summer of 1995. Which made it entirely believable that my father could have noticed her. I rubbed my forehead. I need something solid. Not guesses. Her shoulders stiffened. She already knew what I was going to say. We should do a deoxyribonucleic acid test, I said. I am not accusing your mother of anything. But if there is even a small chance my father had a child no one knew about, then we cannot leave it to speculation. Her eyes flashed. So I become a file for you. A sample. You swab me, run it through one of your perfect labs, and then you can decide what to do with me? That is not what I said. It is what it sounds like. I let out a breath. If our positions were switched, I would be angry too. But this is bigger than my comfort or yours. If my father had another child, I need to know. If he wronged your mother, I need to know that too. She sat there, jaw tight, fighting herself. I could see it. This was the question she had lived with her whole life. Who was he? Why did she not have a father like other kids? Why did her mother never tell her? A mystery is annoying. A mystery with a face is torture. Finally, she said, very quietly, "All right. We will do the test. But if I find out you are using me to make your family look good, I walk. I do not care how tall your building is. You have my word," I said. This is personal. I am not protecting a company. I am trying to tell the truth. That was the moment the entire story tilted. It stopped being about a ring and started being about blood. If Hannah turned out to be my father's daughter, then she was not just some barista who recognized an heirloom. She was my half-sister. And everything I thought I knew about my father would have to be rewritten. For the next few days, we both pretended to live normally. Her sample was taken at my office, handled by a private medical team we worked with through Whitmore Innovations. They were respectful, discreet, kind. A quick swab, labeled, coded, shipped to a genetics facility that owed me several favors. Officially it was nothing. Practically it was everything. Hannah went back to the cafe, the same one where she first saw me. She poured coffee for bankers and assistants and couples arguing about rent. But her mind was somewhere else. She told me later that one question would not stop ringing in her head. Who am I? I was not doing much better. I sat in meetings, nodded at presentations, spoke with investors, but every time I saw my own reflection in the glass I saw my father's face, and behind that, the photograph of Margaret on the yacht. I had spent my whole life defending the Whitmore name. What if the name was not clean? 3 days after the sample was taken, I texted her to come with me. I did not want to sit in that office tower waiting for lab results like some nervous teenager, so I took her somewhere I actually belonged. My driver brought her to the marina on the Hudson. She looked confused when she stepped out and saw the water. "This is yours?" she asked. "The smaller one, yes," I said, pointing at the sailboat. We climbed aboard. The boat rocked gently. I started loosening lines, showing her what went where. She watched every move, more curious than afraid. "I thought men like you only liked giant yachts with full crews and champagne," she said. "My father did," I answered. "He liked noise. I like quiet. Out here nobody needs anything from me." We pushed off. The river accepted us. The city slid by in glass and steel. She stood at the rail, the wind pushing her hair back, that same look of disbelief on her face, but softer. "My mother used to say you could make anything beautiful if you shared it with the right person," she murmured. I looked at her. "She sounds like someone I would have liked." "She would have liked you too," Hannah said, and her eyes glossed over. She was exhausted all the time, but she still laughed. She wanted to tell me more, I think. Maybe she was protecting me. Or maybe she was protecting him. I kept my hands on the wheel, watching the current. "If the test shows we are related," I said, "I am sorry for how hard I pushed." She surprised me with a sad smile. "You are not the only one who wants the truth, Nathaniel. I have wanted it my whole life. That time on the water shifted something. We were no longer standing on opposite sides of a class divide. We were two people standing in the middle of a story neither of us had written. Whatever the result said, we were going to have to face it together. The answer came on a Monday. She was wiping down tables at the cafe when I sent the message. "The results are here. Please come to my office." She arrived breathless, cheeks flushed from the subway and nerves. I was waiting by the elevator. I did not make her sit in the lobby. I brought her straight into the small conference room and handed her the envelope. Her hand shook as she opened it. She scanned fast, eyes jumping over the long scientific language until she landed on the line that mattered. Probability of half-sibling relationship, 99.99%. Her mouth fell open. She looked at me like I had just rewritten gravity. "So it is true," she whispered. "My mother kept the secret because my father was Richard Whitmore." "Our father," I corrected, my throat tight. "You are as much Whitmore as I am." I had always thought of myself as an only child. My whole childhood was built on the idea that I would carry the name alone. Now, in one piece of paper, there was someone else. A woman who had grown up in Brooklyn serving coffee while I was learning to ride in private academies. She sat down slowly, tears gathering in the corners of her eyes, but not falling. Anger flickered there too. Anger at her mother for never telling her. Anger at my father for hiding her. Anger at wealth itself for being so fragile it needed to bury people alive to stay shiny. I opened another folder and slid it toward her. "There is something else," I said. "Samuel found letters. My father wrote to your mother. He never sent them." She picked one up and read. "Margaret, please allow me to help. I will be judged if this becomes public. I am willing to face it. I do not want you and the child to suffer." Hannah pressed her lips together. She refused him. "Yes," I said. "It looks like she only accepted money for medical bills. She did not want to be bought. She did not want you growing up as a secret on a payroll." She nodded slowly, eyes shining. "That sounds like her. It also looks like he was afraid," I added. "There were board members, shareholders, your grandmother, commitments. He chose the company over honesty." "That is on him, not on you." She looked at me the way drowning people look at land. "So what now? Do I suddenly become part of the Whitmore family? Do I get a penthouse? A driver? A seat on a board? That is up to you," I said. "But I would like to acknowledge you. Publicly, eventually. Privately right now. Whether you take the name or not, you are family." She stared down at the test result again, breathing slowly. I could almost see the weight of all those years pressing on her. Her mother working night shifts so she could have textbooks. Her never knowing why there was never a father-daughter dance. All of it finally had a name. In that moment, I understood something I had never understood about my father. Power is not what you own. Power is what you are afraid to lose. And in 1995, he was afraid of losing everything. So he chose silence. We were not going to choose silence. I could tell I had pushed her as far as she could go for one day. "I need time," she said, and her voice was not angry, just raw. "I do not know if I want to walk into that world. I do not even know if I can." That was the fourth big shift. Up to then it was clues, archives, old letters, science. Now it was identity. She was looking at a piece of paper that said she was part of my family, and at the same time she was looking at her own life and wondering if everything she had built so far would disappear the second she took our name. I let her go. For the next couple of weeks, I did what people like me do when we cannot fix something. I tried to manage it. I called. I sent messages that were polite, never demanding. I dropped by the cafe twice. The first time her coworkers said she had taken an extra shift somewhere else. The second time the manager said she had just left. After that I checked her building and learned her lease was up and she had moved. Part of me thought she was running. Another part of me knew I had done the same thing more than once in my life, just with better hotels. While I was trying not to crowd her, she was alone with thoughts that did not let her sleep. She knew now that the blood in her veins carried the Whitmore name. That name could open every door I walked through. It could also trap her in every expectation I had grown up choking on. No wonder she hid. I finally found her in the one place none of my board members would have ever looked. A small community health clinic on the Lower East Side. Peeling paint, crowded waiting area, overworked staff, the smell of disinfectant and tired hope. I walked in carrying daisies, not roses. I was not trying to impress her. I was trying to tell her I had been listening when she talked about her mother. She saw me and stepped out of the way of two patients being led to an exam room. "How did you find me?" she asked, half serious, half exhausted. "You told me once you wanted to work in places that actually help people," I said. "So I asked around." She folded her arms. "I am not ignoring you to be dramatic. I just do not know what to do with all of this. Yesterday I was a girl from Brooklyn who made lattes. Today I am the hidden daughter of a billionaire. It sounds like a script, not real life." "I get it," I said, and I meant it. I grew up with a father who dictated every part of my life and a mother who needed me to keep our image clean. Adding surprise sister to that mix would have broken me too. She looked at the daisies, then at me. Slowly she took them. Her shoulders dropped an inch. "I read some of my mother's journals," she said. "The one she did not throw away. She kept saying she did not want me swallowed up by the Whitmore name. That it would define me the way it defined Richard." "It does not have to," I told her. I put a hand on her shoulder, light, so she could pull away if she wanted. "You can keep your job, change it, take the name, not take it. I just want to know my sister. No cameras. No board meetings about you. Just us." Her eyes shone, but she blinked it back. "We can talk," she said. "Not today. I have a shift. These people need me. Take all the time you need," I said. "I am not going anywhere." A week later, I asked her to do something harder. "Come meet my mother." She went rigid. "Your mother. The woman he married while seeing mine. She knows about you," I said. "She has known for years. She is sick now. She has good days and bad days. On the good days, she remembers everything." Hannah looked scared. Not of wealth. Of judgment. Of walking into a room where she might be the living proof of someone else's humiliation. We drove up to Newport in silence. I caught myself wringing my hands on the wheel like a boy. I had no idea how that meeting would go. My mother could be warm. She could also be made of marble. The care facility was quiet, private, expensive. We were led to a sunny room that smelled like lavender and fresh flowers. My mother, Vivian Whitmore, sat near the window with a blanket over her knees, hair silver, posture still proud. Her eyes were clear that day. She saw Hannah in the doorway and smiled. "Come in, child. You must be Hannah." The relief on Hannah's face was almost painful to watch. She stepped closer. I kissed my mother's cheek and said, "Mother, this is Margaret Moore's daughter." We confirmed it. My mother lifted her hand. "Richard's daughter." "Yes." I already knew. She studied Hannah, the hair, the eyes, the way she stood. "You look so much like Margaret did. Even the way you hold your shoulders." She was lovely. "You knew her?" Hannah asked, voice trembling. "Yes," my mother said, looking past us, Back to 1995. She was on the yacht that summer. I was planning a wedding and trying to keep the family from turning into a circus. Your father liked her. I confronted him. He told me it was nothing. I did not fully believe him. I later found out he sent money for you. She refused most of it. I respected her for that. Hannah stared. So you let her raise me alone. It was not about allowing, my mother said gently. It was a choice Margaret made. And a choice Richard made. And I had a son to protect. We were tied to other families, to boards, to public promises. We could not suddenly announce that there was a child from before the marriage. I do not say that to excuse it. I say it because it is the truth. Hannah's eyes filled. I thought you would hate me, she whispered. I am the proof that he was unfaithful. My mother reached out with a shaky hand and took hers. I never hated you. I pitied the mess. I envied your mother. She kept her freedom. I gave up mine so that the company would stay standing. I stood there watching the two women who had been hurt by the same man, and I felt something in me finally unclench. It was not perfect. It was not fixed. But it was honest. After that visit, things changed. Hannah started coming back. Not every day. Not even every week. But regularly. Sometimes she brought my mother cookies she baked herself. Sometimes flowers. On the best days, when my mother's mind was clear, she would tell Hannah stories about my father pacing at night because he wanted to tell the truth, but was terrified of watching everything his own father built fall apart. It did not excuse him. It did explain him. Around the same time, I asked Hannah to help me with something real. We are opening another branch of the Whitmore Family Foundation, I told her, focused on medical outreach, low-income communities, free screenings, training programs. I would like you to run it. She stared like I had offered her the moon. Then her eyes narrowed. I do not want to be your charity case. You will not be, I said. You will set the agenda. You will hire. You will decide where the money goes. You will sign off on every report. I will just make sure the check's clear. She took a few days to think. She talked to friends. She read our charter. Then she said yes. Not because of the money, but because it matched what her mother had always taught her. Help where it actually matters. Once she stepped into that role, something funny happened. The Whitmore name that had almost crushed her became the thing that let her walk into rooms and get supplies and staff and permits in half the time. She used it for the people she grew up next to. That is the part that made me proud. For me, working with her was like seeing my own company through different eyes. I began diverting profits from areas that did not need them into the foundation's work. A few board members were shocked. A few tried to object. The ones who mattered backed me. Months later we went sailing again. The day was clear, the water calm. Hannah brought a small box with her. Inside were her mother's things. Letters, a scarf, and the photograph that started all of this. We sat on the deck of Morning Tide while Manhattan glimmered in the distance. I used to be so angry at her, Hannah said quietly, looking at the photo. I thought she did not trust me. Now I think she was just protecting me from becoming some corporate secret. She was right to be careful, I said. My father should have done more, but he did try in his own crooked way. I do not know if I can forgive him, she said, but I can believe he cared. I had something for her. I took it out of the cabin. A small box. Inside was a delicate pendant. Not the original ring. That would stay with me. This was a replica, scaled down, the same emerald, the same engraving. I had this made for you, I said. Not because you have to wear it. Because I wanted the symbol to belong to both of us now, not just to him. She fastened it around her neck. The stone lay just above her heart. She smiled, sad and proud at the same time. We sailed toward the city. The sun was dropping, the sky was going pink and gold, and the towers were cutting into it like teeth. Among them was Whitmore Tower, the building that had always been mine. Now, if she wanted, it was hers too. She stood at the bow, wind in her hair, looking straight at that skyline. And I understood that she was not walking into that world as a beggar. She was walking in as someone who finally knew her own name. When we docked, she turned to me. "Thank you for not letting it stay a secret." I laughed a little. "No, Hannah. Thank you for forcing me to look at the parts of my father I did not want to see. We can make this name mean something more than stock prices." She nodded. "Let us do it better than they did. Let us tell the truth, even if it hurts." We walked off the pier side by side. Two people who should never have met in a cafe. Two people who turned out to be family. All because of one emerald ring that a woman wore on a boat in the summer of 1995. So if you are listening to this, here is what I know now. A small moment can flip your whole life. A ring can carry 4 stories at once. Love, fear, pride, regret. My father tried to love in secret. My mother tried to forgive in silence. Margaret tried to raise a child without selling her soul. And Hannah tried to find out who she was. I am the one who finally put the pieces on the table. You think you know where you come from until proof lands in front of you and tells you otherwise. If that ever happens to you, do not run from it. Find out. Ask the hard questions. Decide for yourself what part of that legacy you will keep. That is what we did. And the ring, the one that started all of this, no longer feels like a symbol of betrayal to me. It feels like proof that the truth wins, even if it needs 30 years and a cup of coffee to show up.